Okay, so welcome back, everybody. So today's episode, we're going to explore the profound spiritual world of sound, vibration, frequency, and the voice. Now, most of you know that each one of us has a unique vibration, frequency, sound, and this is usually or sometimes is projected through the voice. And joining us to demystify this uniqueness and the profoundness of the voice, the sound, vibration, frequency, and all that good stuff is our smart sister, Reverend Tonya Tucker. Welcome back, Tonya. How are you? I love it. I can't help myself.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me back. What a joy it is to be here, Faith.
I just want you to have a special day when you can just talk about Rev. The journey on the Rev. Because
that is the story too. That is
yeah. But today's is a broad enough topic, so I'm not gonna take any more time. Putting you in the center. Okay, and I think let's start with something that most people can relate to, and that is music and spirituality. Because we know that people use music in worship. People will tell you, oh, I have this soul connection. People will say, oh my God, I zoned out. It took me places. So I was always like, these are really profound, words that people are using to describe music, which comes from the sound, the voice, and yeah, as the throat chakra shaman. Tell us, what is this all about?
Oh, what a juicy topic. And it's so funny. There are so many people out there who are definitely more expert than I am and can look at it from all sorts of academic lenses and all sorts of metaphysical lenses. But for me, I'll just say that music is a universal language. We may not be able to understand different dialects from different cultures, but when music is played, that is a relatable point for all of us. And just depending on who we are, we all relate to different forms of music differently. There's some people you see who are drawn to classical, and some who are drawn to gospel, and some to drumming, et cetera, et cetera. So I know I'm not one into acid rock, punk, this and that, but there are some people who swear by that. So just like we're all individual and we attract to different foods, different colors, different religions, it's all energy. We attract to the different energies of music frequency, and it evokes something within us. And so I feel that part of it is, of course, cultural, what we grew up with and have a familiarity with. Part of it, I would say, goes even deeper. It's something more primal from, perhaps a past life or ancestral, where we resonate with it and we may not have heard it before in our life. But when we hear it, we feel it, and there's a deep resonance with it. And so, music just has that great power to do all of that.
Yeah, and music is also sometimes, okay, not sometimes, we know that it's also used in ceremonies. It's ceremonial, right? We also know that it's used in the church, and the times in which they play music. It's very strategic. Because Tanya, Reverend Tanya, can you talk about this? Because we know that it's used in worship for a reason. in ceremonies, weddings,
Absolutely.
funerals, and it's different selection, right?
Yeah.
Take it away, Tonya.
Mhm. So, it takes me back to the days when I was teaching public speaking, and there are different aspects of how we want to put speeches together, especially if we are persuading people. And so, something, there's, of course, logos, your logic, and, ethos, like your evidence, but there's also your um, pathos, and that is the emotion. And so music is one way of evoking emotion. And for us to get past our head and to drop down within our body, we need to evoke our emotional responses. And music has a way of doing that. So, when it's time for, I grew up in a Christian tradition, and, I think about the altar call. When it's time to lay our burdens on the altar, there's a certain music that's played. Or when it's time to, get everybody revved up and to give some money. There is no funeral dirge that is played when it's time for giving money. You want something upbeat, get people digging in their pockets. Or
And it works.
someone has talked to right? It's like, give. Oh, yeah, yeah. Or someone is, feeling the spirit and getting happy, and it's like, okay, let's help take them over and let them continue. And so there's that upbeat music and the musicians doing their thing, and the person's getting, happier and happier, as we say, but they've caught the spirit. And so music has the power to do that, to help us to ride that wave, so to speak, into that realm where we can transcend our thinking mind and get more into this feeling state.
Yeah, yeah. And as you were talking, I was thinking about the instruments and the
Mm-hmm.
different sounds that each instrument makes. Now,
Mm-hmm.
we can talk about a few which I think are well known in spiritual practices and are also used in most events and ceremonies and in music as well, concerts and all that good stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about the drums, the
Mm-hmm.
bells, the organ, and the guitar. Let's talk
Okay.
about those
Okay.
instruments. And I picked them specifically just to, kind of broaden the scope because, we're talking about the spiritual power of sound, right? As well as the healing power of sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your thoughts are on how different instruments and the sounds that they produce relative to the vibration and frequency, how they can be used in day-to-day healing, ceremonial,
Okay.
and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Well, I love that you're making me think today and really feel into this. I really have not thought about that. Of course, I've thought about the drum and all percussion instruments. And,
Yes,
a
yes.
lot of ceremonial stuff that I've been a part of. When I go on a shamanic journey, there is a
Mm,
drumming to take me to that state of consciousness where I can, travel and receive the information from spirit. So drums, like native drums can do that, African drums can do that, but all percussion, so like a shekere, maraca, tambourine, even though that has bells to it, it's all this, that's called percussion. And you can get very rhythmic with it. I mean, certainly there are other patterns and syncopation you can put to it, but just that rhythmic nature of it is a way of inducting you into a different altered state of consciousness, if that makes sense.
yeah. Go on. Sorry. Yeah.
No, no. And then I think, it's funny how the the guitar is a string instrument, and when I think of guitar, what it does for me is it pulls at my heart strings. You know, that term that's used, you pull at your heartstrings. Well, it's a string instrument. And so the guitar does that for me, and other stringed instruments like the violin. It's like it evokes a totally different feeling for me than, say, a piano or a drum or a clarinet, which I played in the junior high and high school band. So it just has a way of playing different chords in such a way that many of us respond, where it tugs on our heartstrings, so to speak. And of course, if you think of piano, growing up in the tradition that I grew up in, the piano played such a role, the piano and the organ. And, those were really associated with the church, because you'd have the choir up there singing, or someone who's doing a solo. And it's a far cry from what you would hear in, say, a concert hall, and how, say, a classical musician would be playing a piano, and the different chords that are used. It's not that you can't see someone in the church doing that. They can, some of them can, but it's just different ways of using that particular instrument to evoke whatever it is you want to evoke. And I would dare say that is to, help people to feel a certain way and to access our spiritual selves. Again, moving beyond our thinking mind and just going into how the music allows us to feel and connect more deeply. Yeah.
As you were saying that, I remember something someone said to me many, many years ago, and they said that music, we're talking relative to church music, and I was asking about the worship and why music is a must in every church. Mm-hmm. And their response to me was faith. They told me music is a gateway to the divine. And so we help the attendees in the church to access the divine. And then looking at your work and what you teach, that accessing using your own sound, I thought back the way in the church everybody sings. So everybody is exercising their throat chakra, as you said, and everyone is projecting their unique sound, vibration, and frequency in this sacred space.
Yes. Sacred space. I love that.
Yes.
It is a gateway to the divine. It's a way of connecting in. So, clearing all the rest of the extraneous stuff so that you can be open enough in a state where you can make that connection to the divine. And, I've visited a lot of churches, a lot of different denominations, a lot of different faith backgrounds, and not everyone utilizes music or utilizes it in the same way. And what I have found is, even though I may not identify in the same ways that I used to in the past religiously, I still miss when I don't hear music, or I don't hear music played or sung in a soulful way. It's like it feels like something is missing. So I know that for me, I've been indoctrinated from an early age where I have a relationship with music and connecting me to the divine. And so when it's absent, I feel I have to work harder to do that. Because the music has become an easy way for me, a very clear way for me. And I would dare say a lot of people to make that connection.
You got me thinking about, what I'm getting from that is that we can use music as a tool to help us, get to a state or a point that we want to get or achieve what we want to get, And what I mean is, I remember when I was in college and when I had to really catch up and dive deep, I had to put myself into quick focus, and I played classical music in the background so I can relate to what you're saying without, sometimes with the absence of music can make you work extra hard. So I totally get where you're coming from with that. And I also think it has to do with, as you say, we already, what did you use the word? I don't want to say we're
indoctrinated.
Indoctrinated, yeah. It comes from our surrounding, our upbringing. We grow up with the music, we're born into it. Yeah. And can you talk a little bit? I think this is important actually, because, a lot of people don't know that they can actually achieve a lot just by intent and focus. Can you talk a little bit about this, using music through intent and focus in your day-to-day life? I don't want to limit it to one direction because, it's very expansive what you've described.
Gotcha. So, I put it all together. I call it focused intention. Okay. And we know that, we've been told, and I believe it was the late Wayne Dyer who put it in these terms, energy flows where attention goes. So we want to focus our intention and attention on where it is that we want to go. And so music can be a powerful tool in doing that because, again, it works with us. It works within our energetic being because it's all energy, right? The sound, the vibration, the frequency, it's energy. And we respond to different aspects of the energy. And so there are certain musics that help focus us in so that all else seems to fall away. And so we've seen examples of this when we've watched our favorite TV shows and movies where you see surgeons in the operating room, right? And it's like, what music are they going to play for them to be able to focus in on the surgeon? Yeah, everybody has their own little, song or, type of genre that they like to listen to. And that is the surgeon's way of helping to focus in their energy. And we see it, in all aspects. For you put on classical music because you have learned that helps you to focus in. When I have done massage and Reiki and healing work, I put on music to help me focus in. And for me, it's more than just a focusing in, but it's also, I feel like I'm merging with the vibration of the music. And so music has different vibrational frequencies. And at some frequencies, you can feel how it resonates with you. And I can feel the healing of that sound and vibration. And so by turning that on, it's like I become one with that to be able to focus in my efforts for healing someone. Because life is full of distractions, right? And we can become so very easily distracted by all the extraneous things out there. And so music can just have a way of bringing us back in to that focused place, that energy, that vibration that we want to be in.
Yeah, and I think, Tonya, we I know we'd love to focus on the good side of music, but there's also a dark side of music. And we know that there is a side of music that can do a lot of harm to the body, to the mind, to the spirit. And I don't want to pick a specific genre, but we all know what I'm talking about. The lyrics in certain music, the frequency in that kind of music. And because, we absorb sound, we are. When you're talking about it, you got me thinking about this when you said it is energy. And we absorb energy, we take in energy. So this music that is being played, and then people say, oh, but these boys, why are they like this? It's not their doing. These girls, why are they? It's not their doing. This is energy that they're taking in. So, can you talk to us about this profound spiritual power of sound? Good, you've talked about, now the dark side of it, because it's important to put a little warning sign so that people are cautious about what they consume and take in.
Okay. So if you can bear with me while I go back a little bit and just put some information together. You may have heard, or some of the listeners may have heard of Dr. Emotes' studies with water.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I wanna go down that rabbit hole a little bit to bring it back. Okay.
Very
So
important.
for those who don't know, Dr. Emoto did studies with water crystals. And so he exposed water to different frequencies, different energies by the use of the voice and the use of words written on paper that was taped to water. And then he was able to look through microscope to see the crystalline structure that was formed based on the results of being exposed to that energy and frequency applied to the water. And so when there were words that were quote unquote positive or high vibrational, loving, joyful, you would see the water crystals turn into this beautiful, beautiful structure, like you see the structure of snowflakes, right? We've seen that. But if you expose them to hateful, low vibrational words and energies, you would see the crystalline structure shift. And so it wasn't attractive, it was ugly. And actually, if you compared it to the crystalline structure of wastewater, you would see similarities. So it was very telling about how water responds to energy. And if you think about us as human beings who are made up of at least 70% water, and if we are exposing ourselves to positive or affirming, loving words and vibration and frequency, then that's going to support our physical, mental, emotional structure, right?
Yeah.
But if we are exposed to those low vibrational frequencies, words that are harmful, um, discordant notes, things like that, then that's going to have an impact too. So the music that's out here that doesn't have an uplifting, loving message, that proposes hatred and war and violence and otherness, etc., that is going to have an impact on all of us because we're energetic beings made up of water crystals, right? And if all this energy in our body in the form of water is going to respond to it in a negative way, what do you think is going to happen to your cells? You know, how might it impact your state of wellness or dis-ease? So people may think, you know, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That is so false.
Very.
That is so false. It has the power to harm. And we need to be aware of the power that we can wield with the words that we say that can be carried through not just in conversation, but in our music, in our writings, in our tweets, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Tonya, you've touched on so many important points, and I really hope people receive that very powerful message because the music, its sound, its words, it's so many things, and you're blasting that in your homes and then wondering why things are falling apart. And then you also
Ashe.
mentioned the health and well-being as water. You know, we're mostly water. So what kind of, you know, I've seen that whole documentary, how the crystals form and how they just separate and become distorted in the wrong environment. And everybody, you should really watch that. It's so important. Thanks for pointing that out. And I also want to share a book that happens to plants as well, Tonya. Have you read the book, The Secret Life of Plants?
I have not read that book.
Oh my God, it's exactly the same. That's why some people say, and it's also words and frequency, sound and vibration. That's why some people say, my plants just can't survive in my house.
Well, obviously not. If you say they can't survive in your house, then they won't survive in your house.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you know what? We have reciprocal relationships with our plants and with our trees, and people don't realize that. You know, when we breathe in oxygen, the plants all around us, including those in our home, help to provide that for us. And when we exhale, we breathe out carbon dioxide, and that helps to feed them. That's what they take in for their nourishment. So we already have this reciprocal relationship with them with that form of energy, but there's other forms as well. And we want to make
Mhm.
sure that we are, speaking positively and lovingly to our plants. We're cultivating them in ways in which they can grow. We're attending to them. Energy flows where attention goes. So having that focused intention around having plants that do thrive in our home, and making sure that our actions follow that. Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, and I think you make such a great point, and maybe we can talk about natural sounds. It just got me thinking about when you said we are in constant interaction with our environment. It's a give and take, and it got me thinking about, you've talked about water, the flow of water. We know how calming that is, but we also know what a tsunami means, right? So can you talk to us about the natural sounds and the vibration and the frequency of water flowing, the birds, and I mean, just take it away, take it away. It just got me thinking about that because you were talking so
Okay.
beautifully. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I
Sure.
love that
Sure.
you're taking me with this conversation.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
it's like,
really
do I even
refreshing.
know? Sometimes I just let spirit flow. But
Yeah, I love it.
so many of us in this current day, we've gotten so far away from nature as a healer for us. And the earth has so many healing tools. And it's not just the food that we eat, and it's not just the herbs that we may take and the essential oils, but just the natural sounds out there are healing sounds. And studies have been conducted to show that, some of the natural sounds can impact our heart rate, our nervous system, our blood pressure, all of those things. So whether we hear them naturally or we hear them recorded, we can respond to them. So it might be the running of water. It might be the babbling brook. It might be the chirping of the birds. It might be hearing the wind just rustle the leaves and flow through the air. So, the sounds of the humpback whale, and all of that, those are sounds that have a certain natural frequency that we can respond to and have a benefit to our health. And this is something that's built in, that's ancient. And when we have, all sorts of other noise going, if we're on, I'll speak to technology, which, it's that love hate relationship with it. When we are so into our
Yeah.
TVs and phones and tablets and computers, and we're not taking the time to take in the natural sounds, then our bodies can get out of sorts, out of alignment, because, we're vibrating on more of an artificial frequency versus the natural frequencies that have been put in place for eons to help
Mm.
us heal.
but Tonya, you got to keep talking about that. What is the natural frequency? Just threw that out there. What is the natural frequency, and what is I don't want to say artificial, but the technological frequency, and what do both do to our, I don't want to say our vessel, but our vibration and frequency, because that's what it's interfering with, not interacting with, right?
And so I'm not an expert on this, so I can't tell you there is a set frequency. I just know we are all individuals, and we come here with individual frequencies, and that things in our environment impact us and impact how we resonate, impact our frequency. And so having nature sounds have the ability to soothe us, to calm us, to help heal us. That's why you always you hear the soft healing music. I say healing music. We know what healing music is because we know it when we hear it. We know it when we feel it. We can feel the energy and the vibration of it.
I'm laughing
feel what?
I'm laughing because it's not Marvin Gaye's healing.
Well, that's healing too. That's another frequency of vibration.
What vibration he was bringing up.
There's healing and there's healing. And so the healing that I'm referencing today, we can feel it, and we can, you've heard the term, music soothes the savage beast. It can soothe and calm, and we can feel it impacting our cellular function, because it's impacting our energy, which impacts our cellular function, right? And so we also know if there's discordant energy, if there's yelling, there's screaming, there's shots fired in the background, there are loud noises, and some of this we get on our screen. And I have to, own up to this. It's like, I can't believe someone who is, doing her best to walk a spiritual path, I can watch some really violent stuff. And, I've had people say, how can you do that? And it's like, I know it impacts me, and I have to look away sometimes, and I'm cringing. And it's like, why do you do that to yourself? I love action movies, and I think that's my shadow side that comes out. There's a price to pay, and there's certain things I realize I can't watch that late at night because I'm not able to calm down and sleep. And we know that sleep gives us it regulates our hormones and our immune system, and, it impacts us, in so many different ways. So, if we pay attention enough, we start to notice the impact of sound frequency and the way it comes. Even now I'm going off into another direction, but when you hear the ringing sounds, and you hear, people have talked about, the 5G and all of this, and the electromagnetic frequencies. These frequencies, I don't care what mainstream says about it, I know they impact me. And I know that I need to step away from my computer at a certain time at night. I know if I'm on my cell phone too late at night, it can impact me. These things give off frequencies that are not helpful for our natural rhythms. And so we need to be aware of that and wonder why we have a society so filled with insomnia. Why we have so many anxiety disorders.
Yeah.
What are we doing? What choices are we making? And some people just don't know.
It is true. Some people just don't know. I know people who interact with, who are avid researchers, readers, or interact with people like you or people like who come on this platform, you tend to be in the know, but some people don't. They just don't know. And it's really serious. The statement, knowledge is power, it seems so mundane, but it's true, and it's still relevant. And I like that you brought up the different examples of how technology impacts our day-to-day life, because it got me thinking. When the whole time you were talking about technology, I was thinking at the so-called primitive people. Were they primitive? Because now we have the technology which is called advancement. But then you mentioned what it comes with. It comes with a package, right? It has a tag and a fine print that we don't all know what is in the fine print, right? Then we the primitive, what was called primitive. I now believe, and I say believe because I don't know, I now believe that they had a certain level of awareness, and they were able to do everything the technology is doing without the technology.
Right.
And I'm
like,
saying this to someone like you because I know you know where I'm going with this, and you can talk about this. They were doing everything that the technology.
They were doing everything. And we call them primitive. And, I think we need to call a spade. And it's the ancient wisdom. It's the traditional wisdom. People say, well, that's not traditional. It's like your tradition that you speak of is so young. It's more recent years. The true tradition, the ancient wisdom was in place and really helped to build civilizations, and we poo-poo it, because it doesn't seem shiny and bright, or it might take a little bit longer to get there. And so I spoke with a doctor once, I think it was a naturopath, and the naturopath told me, it's like, I use the lab to come about with findings only because it's faster. But, I don't really need to rely on the lab for full diagnosis, and so a lot of things we do because we are in this instant society. We got to have the microwave to, heat it up,
radiate your food.
We have to have the 5G and the 6G to make everything speed up faster. All of this, the cars have to go zoom, zoom, zoom. The trains have to go zoom, zoom, zoom. I mean, you know what I mean? Nobody wants to be on horseback. Nobody wants to be on foot. And there were some benefits to being on horseback and on foot. We are a much more fit society.
Well,
I need to be riding somebody's horse.
In Kenya, in Kenya, there's a specific tribe that's known for the Olympics. It's not just all Kenyans who can run. It's a specific tribe. I'm not going to break it down because Kenyans will be like, come on, Faith, stop, but I know it's a specific tribe, right? And because of the highlands and the landscape, and, people used to be like, oh, how do they train? And, all Kenyans know that when the Olympics is coming, that whole tribe is just like, I'll go. Because they can all run.
Take it off.
It's not, who's gonna go? They're competing amongst themselves. It's almost like a fun, I want that. They're all like breaking records and stuff. So I like what you're saying here. Some things were just so natural. Legs do have they have. And they're all very lean and fit, and I just wanted to throw that in there. Tonya, go on. You're talking about the tradition.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's just that there's so much wisdom that's been lost. And, it's funny because I'm involved with another book project.
Oh,
as an
great.
editor and a contributor, and it's called Grandma's Secrets. And a shout out
Mm.
to Cinnamon Moreau, who is the beautiful originator of it and the official editor of it. I'm more of the ghost editor, but she has amassed all these amazing beings to be in it. But really, the purpose of it is to look at a lot of the traditional wisdom that has been passed down from our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, what have you. And people are just ignorant of it. They just don't know. And because the further we go on in society, the more distant we become from that wisdom. And the more we socialize to the instant society, so to speak, things that we can get really quick. The big pharmacy type things you know what I mean? And so
Mm.
what were the old wives' tales? What were the ancient remedies? What were the ancient recipes? What did people do to get well, to strengthen, to, go from day to day? And so people are sharing the wisdoms that they have learned. And
Yeah.
so I love the concept of this book because we don't want this to be lost.
No, 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 no.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you're putting it in a book. Put it because, people make it look like books are obsolete, but time will tell.
Mhm.
Let's just leave it there.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I love that you're documenting all this wisdom because I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, someone shared a very profound video with me. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of this lady. I'll find it and email it to you because I think you probably already know who she is. But she's an African American woman who used to heal people with her hands and click
Mhm.
sounds. She used click
Mm.
sounds in her hands, hand movements, and she was just making certain sounds. And she was healing people like it was her job, it was her thing.
Mhm.
And she
Mhm.
was doing a phenomenal job. And imagine, it was lost or forgotten. No one took it up like at a mass big scale. And when you're talking about this, I just remembered that. And she was doing an incredible amount of healing. And it was instantaneous. She had this much, I don't know what to describe it, within her. I don't know whether it was a gift or maybe you can talk to us, about this. What do you think that
Oh,
was?
well, I don't know of her personally. I let's just say I've read and lost a lot of wisdom along the years.
Mm,
Just the nature of my brain. I have read. I wish I could remember the name of the book. I don't know if it was Modern Day Prophets or whatnot, but it was about African Americans who were gifted in a number of ways, in
mm,
healing, in intuition and channeling and things like that. And it told each of their stories. And she very well could have been in that book. But, as a Reiki master teacher, I know that energy flows through me and through my hands, but also I've come to know that it's not just my hands, it's coming through my whole energetic field. It comes through my voice because my voice has the power to heal people. And just by being in a room. So it's not as if I even have to do anything. So different healing gifts can flow to us in different ways, and it's how we're able to channel the energy. And it sounds like for her, it was through whatever her clicks were doing, they
mm.
had some sort of way of focusing her intention because a lot of that energetic healing is around intention. So focusing that to help clear whatever needs to be clear, bring things into balance that need to be brought into balance, and helping that person to become well in some way. So that's just a theory that I have based on what you've described.
Yeah, I'll try and dig it up and send it to you just so you can see. She's
Oh, I love
profound.
it.
And it was so difficult to find more about her work because it's a very short clip and I couldn't find more about her work. But I'll send it to you. Probably you know more about it. But as you were talking about the hands and the healing, I also started thinking back at the church ladies. The church ladies, the big hats, and how they used to lay the hands, the laying of the hands. They were healing. I don't care what you want to
Yes.
call it, but it was no joke.
Absolutely, yes. And one of the things that we do know is that our bodies have a natural tendency to heal themselves if we
Mm-hmm.
provided, the proper circumstances. And we can serve as channels to allow other people to spark that healing force within their bodies. And so the church ladies, we called it the church ladies. That's what many of us were exposed to.
Yes.
But we see it in, many indigenous societies as well.
Yeah.
And I know I've come across people, as soon as they touch me, I feel their healing energy. It's like, oh, they have a natural gift, whether they've been attuned to Reiki or pranic healing or what have you. It's there and it's present, whether they know it or not. And so I think, in our church traditions, it's helpful to people have different labels for things. So, if you have an intuitive sense and you're able to see, then you're called a prophet or a prophetess. If you have a gift of healing with hands, you have the ability to do laying on of hands. And it exists in and outside of the church as well. So it's always been interesting to me that people that I know of who are still in the traditional Christian church, I'll say, and they've wanted to take healing like Reiki there, it's been labeled demonic, and they haven't been able to do that. And so we can label things as other if it's not done in the same way in which we may have learned about over the years. And that's very, very sad to me, because we have so many gifts to offer. And if people would just be willing to receive that gift.
Yeah. And I was thinking about a guest I had recently, and we're talking about the woman and the divine power of the woman, the feminine. And as you were talking and you were talking about these different gifts, I love how she kept saying all women have these abilities. We just need to remember. She said we forgot because the Bible erased the woman. We know how this is a patriarchal realm. It's changing. Yeah, we get it. But in general, we've had a lot of catching up to do. We had to dig deep to get our knowledge. Who is the woman? Who are the women in the Bible? What and relearn, unlearn. And I just remembered her emphasizing remembering. As when you were talking about all these ancient wisdom and all this, I just kept hearing remembering.
Yeah. And if you think about the word remembering, another definition of member is a part. So if we're remembering, we're bringing back these pieces and parts of ourselves that we thought were lost, that we perceived as lost or gone, but just may have been laying dormant, for decades, for generations. And so now is the time for the rising of the divine feminine energy. And we all have masculine and feminine qualities within us.
Yeah,
And those feminine qualities really are, very healing and very intuitive. And if you, have a good deal of feminine energy within you, maybe labeled female or what have you, and you're not feeling that, a great exercise would be to do some work to tap into that, to remember, bring those pieces and parts back to yourself, because trust me, it's there. And because people who may identify as masculine or men, they carry feminine energy within them as well. So they can tap into that aspect of themselves as well.
They sure can. They just have to want to discover. The undiscovered. Yeah, yeah, you're right. And I was thinking about how we learn through repetition, and how when you listen to songs and music, there's always the hook.
Mm-hmm.
And and I wonder why it's called a hook, but you can talk about that. But it's repeated and repeated and repeated. And then I also thought about mantras and chants relative
Mm-hmm.
to changing the energy of a room, of the body, in general, frequency and vibration. Can you talk about this a
Mm-hmm.
little bit and
Mm-hmm.
shed light on, how this works from a shamanic
Yeah.
perspective? Yeah.
Yeah. one of my one of my mentors, E.R. Spalding, she says, practice makes permanent.
Mm.
Practice makes permanent. And so when we think of practice, that's doing an action repetitively. So when we start to speak something, chant something, sing something, it becomes more of a permanent aspect of us. And it can help bring us into whatever frequency or vibration that we are speaking, right? So there's a term I've heard someone say, complaint is a form of prayer. If we're constantly complaining about something, that's repetition, right? We're practicing those words, permanent. So we're going to bring in the vibration of that which we keep practicing. And so we keep co creating the circumstances that we don't want. And the same thing is true for the things that we do desire. So it's not just speaking them, but it's the feeling and vibration that goes with them. So there's certain words and sounds that resonate with a certain energy, and some of them, like we've heard the term that has a certain frequency, but the word love has a certain frequency, so it might be different words or sounds that we chant. And if we say them enough, it starts to bring us and starts to keep us in a particular frequency and vibration that is highly attractive and starts to bring to us that which we're calling in, that which we desire. And so we chant, we say our mantras to keep us, it's a way of focusing in. Once again, focusing our intention on what it is we're calling forth. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just keep thinking, Tanya, because you mentioned you have the gift, um, you have the gift of healing through your voice and through your sound. How did you discover this? How did it click? Like, oh, this is something's happening here. I'm just asking because I think so many people have a lot of gifts and they have all these signs, but they're just missing it or
Mm-hmm.
ignoring it or not
Mm-hmm.
answering the call. You know what I mean?
I
How did
do.
you
And,
did you find out yours? 'Cause
that's a good question. I mean, I may be on this Sisterhood Smarts podcast, but sometimes I'm not that smart. And things go over my head and I miss it. And it takes
trust me,
someone
you're
else
smart.
noticing. Oh,
You're
bless
smart.
you.
You're a
Thank you so
smarty smart. Yeah, yeah.
much.
Very
But
smart.
sometimes things go over my head and I need to co-create someone else to share something with me, to be my mirror, and for me to know, oh, that's what's going on, because I missed it. It was like zoop right over my head. And so I started hearing over the years people talking about just wanting to listen to me. Will you just read something to me? Or wanting to hear my voice. Or I missed you when you stopped coming to the call. Your voice is healing for me. And then I got a reading many years ago, I don't know, at least 10 years ago, from one of my spiritual sisters at Tacoma Metaphysical Tacoma Metaphysical Chapel, Reverend Jane Batt. And this message she gave me was, your voice is so healing, and it's going to go out across the world and heal so many. And so it was probably more like 15 years ago or whatnot. And, since that time, I did a podcast for 10 years. I had recorded a meditation CD. I recorded an audiobook, and I do voiceover work. And people just say there's something about the quality of my voice that's calming for them. And so I wouldn't have picked up on it necessarily, but I can tell you what, when I listen to my own recordings and meditations, I can put my own self to sleep. So, so I kind of started to get it. It's like, oh, okay, I feel my nervous system responding to it. I feel my energy calming and all of that.
Wow. And I see that this happens more often than not, that sometimes people can see your greatness before you see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so strange because people will tell you things that, I've seen so much in people, and I'm like, oh my God, you do that so beautifully. Like, it's effortless. And they'll be like, ah.
Right.
Yeah, but it's so clear too. I think maybe because all of us, we're in it. So, it takes the outside looking in. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And, I also think, childhood trauma and wounding can create a great barrier to seeing our greatness. It like fogs up the mirror, so to speak. And we're not able to see the bright shining lights that we are until we learn to do things to start to clear away that smog from the window and to see the truth of us. And sometimes it takes, seeing that reflection in someone else. And it's like, oh, I see that in them. Oh, I see that in me too. Oh, thank you for sharing that with me. And now I can see a little bit more clearly. That helped clear things up a bit more for me.
Yeah, and I also think sometimes what hinders people from, grabbing their gifts and just leaving it is they always connect it to monetary, to the money. And nowadays I've come to see that as the god of money, because they connect it and they're like, oh, you're like, oh my God, you sing so beautifully. They're like, come on, I'm not going to make a living doing that. But that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is you sing beautifully. Just take it and sing in the shower. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? But people block, they cap it because they connect it so quickly to money. Can I make money from it? And I think that's like so disheartening that, you can enjoy your gifts, leave them out without, you just, and maybe you would, but you never did it, right? To know.
Right.
Yeah,
And again, think about money is just another form of energy. So when we do things as a profession and we receive money for it, that's lovely. That's wonderful. It helps pay the bills and get us some things we want. But if I'll say if we sing and it brings someone enjoyment, that is also a form of currency. That's an exchange. We get to receive that. Oh, I was able to bless them with my singing. And that is part of the energetic exchange. And that is enough too.
Yeah, you've opened a huge box there, Tonya. Currency.
Wow,
I'm not going to dive into that. I'm not going to dive into that and dig a little bit deeper now, because we'll just take it to the end. I don't want to do that.
Our little rabbit holes, we got them, right?
Yeah. But that is really profound, because what is currency and in which forms does it show up? And, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. Maybe some other time, but it's a great one. And I think it's important as well. But I want you to talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions of shamanic work and sound healing, voice healing, and all these different, I'll say, alternative forms of healing, for lack of better words, because originally those were the natural states of healing. Now we have to call it alternative. Alternative. But talk a little bit about this, some of the misconceptions, so that people can at least gain an understanding of the natural state of things versus the unnatural state of things, which now we think is the natural state of things, the kind of inversion.
Sure. So, when we take things back to our indigenous roots before some of the more quote unquote modern day society, we had a lot of structures in place to help restore balance to our individual health, to our community health, to society in general. And, of course, the shamans played a major role in that. And they also understood that death was not an ending. It was just a transition into another state of consciousness and being. And those who had gone on before us, ancestors, and those who are on the other side of the veil, angels, spirit guides, what have you, that they are still present and that they can serve as support to provide insight and guidance, for our healing journey. And so they have studied and learned ways of utilizing that. And so we see it, they may not use the term shaman, but in certain societies, they may have that. You may have the Sangoma, who's a traditional South African medicine woman. You may have people who've been called Obia or Bruja or what have you. There are different names that have been associated, but they understand about restoring balance to systems, whether it's our body system, and restoring that equilibrium and homeostasis or whatever into our physical system, but also in our society. So that it's not that it's been lost, because it's still very present in a lot of societies, but the more modern we become, a lot of times we become indoctrinated into new ways of being, and we throw out the old. And so that's why we see societies that are out of sync, out of balance, because we haven't been practicing the old ways, or we have not made room for the old ways that we could integrate in a complementary fashion with some of the new ways. Because, I'm the first to tell you, some modern technology, it's amazing. Some modern medicine, it's amazing. And, unfortunately, with some modern medicine, they study enough and they find like these active components in some of the herbs and other natural elements, and they extract them, amplify them, and they make a medicine out of it. And then they wonder why people have side effects. And they like throw out the rest of it saying, oh, this is an inactive ingredient, an inactive element, not realizing that it helps to create that balance to use it for healing. And so that so much of that has been lost. And what I love with the rise of the divine feminine is more and more people are learning that we have to bring back some of the old ways. There was a lot of richness, a lot of wisdom, a lot of healing in the old ways. So you have more and more people awakening to the power within them, being more in tune with themselves, being more in tune with nature, being in tune with spirit, being able to communicate with the other realms, etc., because this way that has developed over the last few centuries has taken us out of balance. It's been more of a masculine form. We've been cultivating war and competition and individualism versus peace and harmony and the power of the collective.
You've touched on something so important, and I remember I had a guest on, and she said something almost similar. Of course, it was framed differently, but she said that we've been at war and all these toxic emotions, we've been in this distorted, unnatural state of existence for so long that sometimes she wonders whether we can even imagine what it would look like to live in a peaceful, harmonious realm. Can we imagine that? Because you kept saying intention flows where?
Where energy flows where attention goes.
Energy flows where intention flows. So can you imagine? We've been in this constant state of distorted, war and warring and individual. It's just, the list is very long. Can you imagine if our energy and intention flowed in the right direction? But can we do it? Do you think we can even? I know we can, but you know what I mean? To shift from such a deep hole and come, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, if we think about the power of our words, even in how we do things, I always think about the war on drugs that was taking place in the U.S. and has really had a resurgence. It's like, when we're in this conversation around war, we're looking at ways of fighting and combating, and it's taking us away from other energies that might have a role in taking care of the issue. So we call things war and battle. I have many friends, many family members who have been in battle or fought cancer or who passed away from cancer. My father had it, but died from something else. My mother and her mother passed away from colon cancer. Two of her brothers had colon cancer and passed away, and one had multiple cancers. Another one had multiple cancers, and two of my brothers have had colon cancer. So, I've heard a lot of people who say, well, I know you want to make sure that, you want to fight whatever. It's like, I'm not in a fighting energy. I'm in a conversation with my body. I'm in a conversation with the cells within my body. And, I remember when I contracted COVID for the first time, because I had it twice. And the first time in 2021, it was like, okay, COVID, what are you here to teach me? I'm not fighting you. I just want to know what the lesson is. What am I here to learn? What am I here to get? Other than this hacking cough and inability to breathe, right? And so when anything shows up,
you're even cracking jokes.
my humor, I think I'm dying. I was like, okay, got to keep my humor. But no, I mean, I really try to not take an adversarial role within my body, within the cells. And it's like, okay, even when I'm doing work on behalf of someone else, I am just seeing any foreign cells just shrinking and radiating light and healthy cells around it. But there is no heavy pounding artillery shooting, bad cells. That's just not the energy that I solve things with. So all of that is to say, this society, war is all around. And we haven't learned how to tune into the peace that's also all around.
Wow.
It's all about our perspective and what we choose to see and amplify.
It's so interesting as you were talking. Yeah, people always say, oh, I'm fighting this cough. I've been fighting this. It's in the language. It's really profound. So, and then, it's the language, and this is sound, vibration, frequency, energy beings in water bodies. So we are crystallizing, separating. We're doing the you've said
Got it. Boom.
I got it.
Did I get
it? I got it.
Yes, Hunty. Yes.
I got it. I am so proud of myself because it's some serious stuff. It really is. Yeah. Oh my
And
goodness.
it's a whole paradigm shift for us, though. And if we've spent 30, 40, 50, for me, almost 60 years in a certain paradigm, it can be hard to make that shift and to
Ooh.
start to think differently and to act differently, to show up different energetically on this planet.
Yeah. And also, what is cancer? These are names that were invented.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I don't want to
mm-hmm.
go into that because,
Right.
in many parts of this world, they never heard of that. You can show
Mm-hmm,
up with all kinds of symptoms that reflect that, but they will never call it. They'll be like, let's look into this.
mm-hmm,
These were invented words.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes.
And when you talk to naturopaths and homeopaths, they don't look into that. They look into different aspects of the body, what's going on in the body. And then
Mm-hmm,
they look at why these tumors and whatever are showing up, you know?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And yeah, anyway. Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
usually energetic signature. So, this is not a show on that, but you did open that beautiful, um, box. It's
Mm-hmm.
really amazing. And you healed yourself with your voice and speaking to your body.
Mm. Ashe. Yes.
Oh
Yes.
my goodness, that is beautiful. Yes,
Mm.
I think we should end it there, Tanya. This is a beautiful place to end it. I think, yeah, because there's so much to ponder, so much to think about. But I want you to share anything that is still heavy on your heart or that you would like to share before we slowly head out. Something we might not have touched on that you would like to share with us and our listeners.
Mm. I won't say it's heavy on my heart. I'll say it's light on my heart.
I know. Look at that. You know what I mean?
It's so
Seriously.
easy for us. It's so easy for us.
It's
But,
so easy for us to use this language. Yeah, why should it be heavy on your heart? You know what I mean?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I
I
just,
just, yeah, look at how easy it is to fall
it's so
for the
easy.
language.
It really
It's
is so
so
easy.
easy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's something that is light on your heart, that is just in your
Hmm.
heart.
It's in my
Yeah.
heart. And
Hmm.
what I want to do is just issue an invitation for everyone out there listening, and this is always for myself too, to pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Are you wanting to amplify that?
Ooh.
And if not, then why are you paying so much attention to it? Is it something else you want to amplify? Then let's start paying attention to that and not the lack of it or the absence of it, or just amplify the signs of it that we see. Pay attention to what we see. So, I mean, that's what came up for me, going back to what we were talking about earlier about focused attention and focused intention. What is it we're intending for ourselves? So let's focus our attention on what we're intending for our lives. Pay
I,
attention to what you're paying attention to.
I absolutely love it. I love how you have phrased that so beautifully. Like it's really, really nicely put. And it's profound if we really think about what's going on on the world stage, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we won't go into that, but to all our listeners, thank you for stopping by. This was our Smarty Smurf guest and our smart sister, Reverend. I love that, Tonya Parker. Now, I want to remind you all that Tonya's information, her work, and her book will be in the description as well. So, take a sneak peeks, hop, skip, and jump around, see what piques your interest, and, go for it. And Tonya, once again, thank you for stopping by. Until next time, goodbye.
Thank you so much. I had a blast as always.
Me too.